Unbelievable. For a team that is done. They're done. They got nothing to play for. That's what makes last night even more special. The Rams are dead in the water. They're not getting back into the playoff chase. They could run the table. They're going to finish 8-9. They're not getting in at 8-9. But what a moment that they experienced and we all experienced last night during a game that, Peter, I was telling you before the show, at some point early second half, I'm thinking, oh, God, we got to talk about this game tomorrow. Maybe there's something else we can talk about right out of the gates. And yet again, the NFL proves that it's never over until it's over, and you can be down 16-3. That is now the most dangerous lead in football, 16-3, because in the last two primetime games, 16-3 disappears in the final 3 minutes and 30 seconds of the game with a pair of touchdowns by the trailing team, and they win. And the difference is the Bucs need it to get to the playoffs. The Rams don't, but there was more euphoria from the Rams than there was from the Bucs because of the whole Baker Mayfield angle. It was amazing. It was incredible. You think you've seen it all, and you see something more. And good morning, Peter. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mike. You know, at the end of the game, on that last drive, they set up 98 yards away, and I said, this can't happen, of course. Okay, it can't. But if it does happen, it's one of the big stories of the year in the NFL, regardless of how meaningless the game is. Okay? But as you look at the plays on this particular series, first of all, you want to say, oh my God, cheap interference call. It was not a cheap interference call. It was absolutely
grabbed him and pulled him.
Pass interference. Yeah. And here's the other thing, though. You're right, and we're going to talk about this later on. We're going to talk about all of the holding calls that I think the refs just basically said, we're not calling that anymore. You know, we aren't. But let's talk about the three catches that Baker Mayfield, or the three passes that Baker Mayfield threw, that according to Next Gen Stats, okay, last night after midnight, I'm working with Next Gen Stats, and look at this throw right here, the winning throw. 3 throws that were longer than 30 yards in the air, that every one of them had less than a 35% chance of completion at the time the ball was thrown, which in Next Gen Stats parlance is exceedingly rare. There are quarterbacks that play an entire game that don't complete a ball with less than 35% chance of it being completed. And yet, he did it 3 times in 1:35 at the end of this ridiculously improbable game. And oh, by the way, so Baker Mayfield threw approximately 50 passes, 50 passes, from the time he walked in to the Rams at about 9:15 on Tuesday night. They took him from Los Angeles International Airport. The practice facility is about an hour north of LA. And so he got some work done, mental work done that night. Okay, but then the next day he comes in and they do kind of a long walkthrough, including, as Jordan Rodriguez, the Athletic, reported today, they did work on a 2-minute drill, okay, which they ran, obviously, at the end of this game. But here's the amazing
He said
thing.
that, too. He said that after the game last night, talking to Amazon.
He did? So here's what's amazing, at least to me. Okay, so all these receivers, you know, Ben Skoranek, you know, and Van Jefferson, he doesn't know these guys. He met them on Wednesday morning. Okay, and so the estimate from one of their coaches was that he's probably thrown 10 balls or less to each one of those guys when he walked on the field Thursday night. Okay, and so here's guys he never met until about 35 hours before the game. And then he ends up throwing these 50-50 balls to him that they catch, you know, with great coverage. Look, I heard a lot of criticism of Patrick Graham last night. Oh, my God, awful, terrible, all this stuff. I mean, explain to me how this coverage right here is the fault of the defensive coordinator. They had really good coverage. Sometimes you just have to say that the guy made great throws. And Baker Mayfield, that's, this is crazy, Mike. It's crazy. Because obviously he beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh in a playoff game. So you got to be a little careful saying that that's the best drive of his NFL life. That is the best drive of Baker Mayfield's NFL life.
Well, that last play, it wasn't an issue of the quality of the coverage. Mayfield mentioned this also after the game on the Amazon desk. He said that he was surprised that they were playing press coverage in that spot, that they weren't off the ball, given the circumstances. You're protecting the goal line at that point. That's all you're doing. You're up 6. There's one piece of the field that you should give a crap about, and that is the 53 1/3 yards across, 10 yards deep, painted different than the rest of the turf portion known as your end zone. And he was surprised that he had the opportunity to throw it up and over because the guy was in press coverage and Van Jefferson got around him. And Peter, one point about his prior knowledge of Skowronek and Jefferson. Mayfield said after the game he tried to get Jefferson to come to Oklahoma, and Jefferson ghosted him. So there's a prior relationship that wasn't a good one there. Jefferson wouldn't respond to his calls or text messages, so they did have sort of a prior relationship, but forced together last night. And it really was amazing. And the moment that I sat forward, because we'll watch these games and somebody's got a chance to come back. But, I mean, holy crap, the punt that had a mind of its own, that rolled inside the 5 and didn't go out of bounds. Play. And Mac Hollins is doing the gritty as the punt comes to a stop. It's 98 yards. Sarah Barshop of ESPN tweeted last night that, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, the Rams' 98-yard touchdown drive was the longest go-ahead TD drive that began in the final 2 minutes of a game over the last 45 seasons of NFL football. It doesn't happen. It's like they've got 98 yards to go. They've got no timeouts. And the first play, it was just one of those, oh boy, they want to get the hell out of here and go home plays. It was a poorly timed out route, but they came back, they ran the same play the next time, and that got it moving. And the moment I leaned forward was the combination of the 15-yard penalty on Jerry Tillery for knocking the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands after the play, and people may not like that, but you just can't do that, especially with the clock running late. You can't do that. And it was after a sack. It was a huge swing.
Bush League.
And then I think it was the very next snap was the long throw to Ben Skowronek. And after Skowronek made that catch, that's when I sat forward and thought, holy crap, we got something going on here. But here's the Tillery play. Unsportsmanlike conduct is the call. He knocks the ball out of Baker Mayfield's hands. And he does it right in front of an official. What the hell is this guy thinking? Do you have no awareness of the rules or the situation or any expectation instinctively that you may get in trouble for that? But once that kept the drive plausible, the Skowronek catch made the drive possible. And that is and if you're on the field at that moment, you got to be thinking, oh boy, something's happening here. And that 98-yard drive ends up becoming a touchdown. It really was amazing. And it was amazing because I can't recall a time that we've had that exciting of a finish where we all have that buzz after the fact for a team that's going nowhere. But it's for the player who walks through the door, as you laid out, 48 hours, limited practice time, and he's the quarterback. This isn't Christian McCaffrey plugging in one piece of an offense where he doesn't need to know the whole thing. The quarterback has to know the whole thing. And he didn't even start. The Rams even realized how ridiculous this was. We can't start this guy. And then it's like, oh, wait, the other option is John Wolford. Yeah, let's put Baker Mayfield out there. Wolford, poor guy, had his helmet on the rest of the game thinking he was going back in. Nope, no two-quarterback situation tonight. Baker Mayfield is better than John Wolford, even if Baker Mayfield doesn't know what the hell's going on. But he did. It was just unbelievable. And it's one of those things that And we're going to talk about the flaws, and you mentioned one of the big flaws, but it's just one of those things that makes football fun. We don't have enough of that. It just makes it fun. Raw, pure fun.
It's almost like, Mike, when I started to watch the game last night, I thought exactly what you were thinking. I said, what are we going to pick out of this game? And look, we saw it through early in the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield had a couple of jolts of, man, that was a good pass, or that was a good play. Like his first throw, he said, hey, that's something, that's good. But after a while, you just started to think, and look at this throw to Skoranek. It's unbelievable, first of all, that he comes down with this ball, but the ball is perfectly thrown. Perfect. That's the craziest thing of all, that these throws are just perfect. Now, on this particular play, on the touchdown play, the one fault I will lay on, and Andrew Whitworth, I think it was him on the postgame show, showed this perfectly, that Duron Harmon, an experienced player, okay, he floated back in the middle of the field so that there were basically two safeties right in the middle of the field, duplicate safeties, instead of having one with the best receiver on the field for the Rams, Van Jefferson, instead of having the second one. So Duron Harmon is right, he's useless. He's useless because right over the top is another safety. So there's no need for Duron Harmon to be there. That is where I will fault the Raiders for not having a second man in coverage on Van Jefferson, who clearly is their number one receiver going into that play.
Yeah, look, I agree with you completely. And the more that we see this play, yes, it was a great throw. Yes, it was a great catch. Yes, it was great coverage. But the configuration of the 11 defensive players with 14 seconds left and no timeouts for the Rams, that is not the way that you win the game. That's the way you lose the game. You dare Baker Mayfield to throw it over the top. I mean, that alignment, assuming that it was consciously picked and it wasn't a mistake and they knew what they were doing, that alignment said to Baker Mayfield, we don't believe you can do this. We just don't believe you can do it. We don't believe that one of these guys is going to get behind one of our guys and you're going to be able to teardrop a perfect pass in there. So go ahead. We dare you to try.
Because you know why, Mike? You saw on this play that we just showed 3 or 4 times that the Rams receiver in the middle of the field was at about the 8-yard line. And as you said, no timeouts left. Let him throw the ball to that guy. The game's over, yes. Or maybe you have 1 second to go if you can get up and spike it. But I think probably if they caught that ball, the game would be over. And so I just kept thinking last night after watching that, and again, look, I kind of think this is a player error, not a coverage error, but, we don't know. Whatever was happening on that play, Duron Harmon, who's a really smart player, I just simply don't understand why he floated to the middle of the field instead of going to back up the most dangerous receiver on the field for the Rams. Honestly, Ben Skoranek is a fine player, but he's not a great receiver. He's a
But he had just made that other catch, though, so you can't ignore him. He had just made that other catch. So out in the moment, you have to be aware of 18.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring him. But what I am saying, and I don't even know where he was, whether he was that guy in the middle of the field or not, but all I'm saying is that you don't leave Van Jefferson alone, and Duron Harmon just floated to the middle of the field, and it was just a huge mistake.
Or you just keep everything in front of you, you put some guys on the sidelines because they could have gotten a little closer and made it an easier shot to the end zone, but ultimately you are defending the end zone with 14 seconds left and no timeouts, and the opposing offense 24 yards away. you are defending, or you should be defending, the end zone. Let's take one more look at it. I'm curious to see if we can see where Skoranek is. But you're right. There's a guy running in front of the goal line that as long as you can get to him and tackle him, you win the game. They're not going to get another play off, most likely. They're not going to get it snapped. You see a couple of guys up top. I mean, it's the same concept. They had guys running deep on the outsides, single coverage, and Harmon's in the middle of the field. Why is he even there? You're wasting a guy in that spot in the middle of the end zone. You got one guy who's playing deep middle in the end zone, and everybody else is in man coverage underneath. It just makes no sense to me, Peter. Especially since he just stood there.
It makes no sense. And it looks like from the play that Skoranek was wide right. So, who knows? But I guess the point I would make is I think it was Harmon and then the second safety there. They duplicated the job. And then way on the right where it looked like Skoranek was, I wish I had one of those little dot things that and I'm going to look for it in a break. But, where Next Gen Stats does the dot play where you can follow each player and they put the number on them. I'm going to look at that when we go to break, and we'll find out exactly whether there was anybody over the top for Skoranek. And it's possible, Mike, it's very possible that they left both of them singled without safety help over the top. But we
dare
really
you, Baker Mayfield. We dare you to make this throw. We dare you to make it. We don't think you can. And he did. That's what's amazing. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.